Welcome back, everybody, to the Tilted Lawyer podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be highlighting the case that has gripped the nation. It's the Delphi Murders. There's been numerous documentaries that are out there floating around in the Netflix space, HBO Max, whatever your carrier of choice is. This has been a case that has been investigated since 2017. It's been extensively torn apart and put back together by various internet sleuths. There's an entire podcast that's devoted exclusively to this case. And there has been a lot of speculation about what in the hell is going on with the Delphi case. There is a suspect. He's facing trial. We're going to talk about whether or not he is a viable suspect. We're going to talk about all the evidence that's pointing towards him and why there is reasons to doubt that he was the sole person responsible. And if he was, or whether or not he was involved at all. We're going to get all to that. We're going to get to all of that coming up next. Let's get started. Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney. And it's after hours, so have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started. Ileana, I got to find a way to get you into that intro. This is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer podcast. And Ileana,
No.
I don't know, somehow. So this case was requested by my wife. She wanted me to cover this. She's wanted me to cover it for the longest time. And so, of course, since she's been requesting it, I've been putting it off like everything else,
Oh, God.
household chores and whatnot. But this case is there's a lot more than meets the eye here. Let's go over the timeline. So all of this revolves around our two victims. We have Abby, we have Libby. They were the unfortunate victims of their lives coming to a rapid end on February 13th of 2017. So let's go all the way back. If you do a Google search for this case, you're going to find a very extensive timeline that has been put together over the course of, 7 years now. It's published on Reddit. It's very extensive. It stops at around 2020 or whatever, but it was devoted towards eyewitness statements and possible suspects in the case and what was going on. There's the probable cause affidavit that led to the arrest of the current suspect. But it's the most in-depth, in detail thing I've found out there among all of the other stuff. And I'm going to caution. Look, I know that this case has been floating around in popular culture for 7 years. I know that most of you listening to this show know everything there is to know about this case. And I'm not going to talk about all of the things that you want to talk about because I only have so much time. My focus on the show is not an exhaustive and on this particular episode, it's not an exhaustive rundown of all of the evidence. I'm asking the simple question: whether or not the main suspect in this case, Richard Allen, who stands all of 5'6", by some accounts he's 5'4", he's sitting in a maximum security prison as we speak. He's awaiting trial, but realistically, that trial's probably not going to take place until probably early next year. Right now it's scheduled to take place this month. I don't think it will. But is he responsible, or is it a possible sacrificial killing at the hands of this Odinistic religion that predates Christianity? And there's a lot of twists and turns in terms of membership into that society and the people that are involved in this case. More specifically, people that are charged with watching over Richard Allen. For example, this Odin community religion, they have these very distinct tattoos. There's been sergeants in care of that maximum security prison that have those patches on their uniforms. There's one guy that has a tattoo on his face tied to membership in this cult, basically is what it is. And I'm going to go over specifically what we're talking about. But there is a lot of room for, at the very least, questions to be asked. I want it to be understood that Richard Allen, at least on 5 or 6 occasions, has given statements confessing to various degrees to the crimes that have been committed. Nobody has seen specifically what he has confessed to. They've been alluded to in court documents. They've been alluded to by the defense attorneys. He had an original set of defense attorneys, these rock star defense attorneys that have been litigating cases for years and years. They were thrown off the case for sloppiness, essentially. They were replaced by 2 other attorneys that spent maybe a couple months investigating the case. I don't know the exact time frame, but they were kicked back off because the original attorneys were jumped back into the case, and they have real questions. And what's more striking to me is that when they speak about the case, they are genuinely afraid to say certain things. Like, okay, so it's one thing when you and I, we sit and we talk about our cases, and generally, we're carefree. It's like, oh, it's work. It's our cases or whatever. But when you listen to the former attorneys that were running on this case, they appear to be genuinely disturbed at the possibility that there is these Odin religion cult members watching over all aspects of the case on the law enforcement side, possibly in the litigation side, possibly on the judicial side, certainly within the community, and they're everywhere. And he gave an interview to Law and Crime. He was very guarded in his words. In his face, like you could see genuine fear. And I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but that sounded like a guy that just didn't want to say the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. Granted, there was a gag order in this case, and he's not supposed to talk about all the details. It just struck me how he described things. Let's jump into this timeline. Take yourself back to February 12th of 2017. Abby and Libby used to practice softball, and they wanted to go to that park. They had ate pizza for dinner that day. They had listened to music. They had worked on an art project together. It was centered around, I guess, the main theme of chocolate. They were having a good time. They were prepubescent girls, pubescent girls, right on the verge, around that age. They had watched movies with Kelsey and her friends. Abby had slept over at Libby's on that Sunday night. And at 2:45 a.m. on February 13th, Libby and Abby, they made several videos of themselves. School was out. It was a free day off for the girls. They wanted to make plans. The previous Friday was also a school day off. Around 9 a.m., according to the Scene of the Crime podcast, Libby's mother, Carrie Timmons, sent Libby a Snapchat just to say good morning. Libby sent a selfie of herself in the bed. Around 10 a.m., Mike Patty says that he thinks the girls woke up around 10 a.m., sleeping in for the day, enjoying a school day out. Derek had made the girls banana pancakes. Libby and Abby, they were bored and asked Becky if they could do something. And Becky said, well, if you would help her do some filing, then yeah, we'll go shopping later. And so they had painted a desk in Libby's room. Libby was growing restless. She really just wanted to get out the house. And around lunchtime, the girls asked Becky if they could go on a hike at the Manon High Bridge that Libby and Kelsey had been before. And if you've ever seen that bridge, Dominic's going to put a picture of it, and I'm sure everybody's seen it, but it is this rickety old bridge.
Scary looking.
There's no railing on it. It's missing like rivets and like planks of wood. It's not anything that I would ever voluntarily get on because I'm afraid of heights.
Me either.
At this age. But children would go over there. It was like a thing to do. Oh, look, let's go on the bridge. And they would cross. And it was, in this wooded off area. Everybody's seen the pictures. It was about 70 feet suspended in the air where beneath there was a creek.
Yes.
And they visited that bridge before. It was off limits to the public. Nobody was supposed to go there, but, it was a thing for children to do. It's the kind of thing that you would do if you were like 10, 11, 12 years old. Like, I remember my brother used to climb on the top of the roof and jump off the house with an umbrella. I'm Mary Poppins, woo! And then he would, it was just something that we did.
Yes.
I once climbed a tree. I got stuck up there.
Yeah, my husband
refused to come down.
That he jumped from like a 3rd floor into a pool. And I was like, and
yeah.
you didn't die?
I'm not doing that shit.
Yeah.
So this bridge, it was a common place for the family to go. Libby had crossed the bridge many times. Kelsey said that they had been there many times before, geocaching or riding bikes. enjoying the scenery, taking pictures. Abby's mom had said that Abby did not ask her if it was okay for Abby to go. Abby had played at the creek before. Not far from there, they would practice softball. It was just very familiar to them. Anna said that she would have given permission. So between noon and 5 o'clock is where it gets a little bit dicey. According to the Indiana State Police press release, there was a vehicle parked at the old CPS building in the city of Delphi that was abandoned on the east side of a building next to the Hoosier Highway between the hours of noon and 5. A car. That's important. Around 12:30, approximately, there was a reported activity in the neighborhood on the south side of the Manon High Bridge. There was a controversial YouTuber that had made a video talking about Bridge Guy. Have you seen that video? I know you've seen that video where the guy on the bridge, he's walking.
Yes.
He has that specific gait.
Yes.
Now, when you
Like,
see...
walks like
I bring that up because we have this new guy. We have the main suspect in this case, Richard Allen, right? He has a very distinct look. If you see him now, he looks nothing like what he looked like before he was arrested. He's lost a lot of weight. He's emaciated. He's very sickly. He's bordering on mental incapacity at this point. They've placed him in a maximum security prison.
Okay.
Why is that important? Because when have you ever represented a criminal client awaiting trial that they moved to a maximum security prison? It's not something that happens. You sit and you bide your time at county. It's usually only after a conviction where you're going to be transferred to straight state prison that they send you over there. But before that, you're going to county, to the county jail, right? Which is not a maximum security. You're not on lockdown for 23 hours a day. You have visitation privileges with your family. You have a specific place in that facility to meet with your attorney in a nice, where you could exchange papers, signatures, and all of that, sit and interview your clients. At this maximum security prison, his former defense attorney was literally saying, look, I didn't have a place where I could sit there and talk to them. There's no possible way I could have prepared for this case. Under those circumstances, he was sitting in the kitchen and I was in this about 6 feet from him. He was talking through like this slit in the door that you would slide food trays. I couldn't exchange paper with him. I couldn't get him to sign documents. We couldn't have a meaningful conversation. That's at the facility he's being housed at right now. And mind you, it's supposed to be a constitutional right. And I'm not saying that he's guilty or innocent. I'm just saying he's supposed to be presumed innocent. And they're treating him as if maximum security. What is that for? In a county prison, those are usually people awaiting trial. They haven't been convicted. Low-level offenders, guilty of misdemeanors, essentially, DUIs, whatever. They're sitting there doing 30 days, no longer than 6 months, maximum for a misdemeanor. In a maximum security prison, you're in there with literally people on death row, murderers, the worst of the worst, people that need to be maximally restrained. You're literally in a cell for 23 hours a day. You get an hour of exercise time, rec time, whatever. They feed your food in a slit through the hole in the wall. You're literally sitting there in your worst version of Alcatraz.
Just the color, I think the 33 one.
The what?
The 23 one, where they spend 23
Yes.
hours inside and then 1 hour. I guess they can go outside.
Hey, Dominic, what do you know about that movie Alcatraz, 1979, Clint Eastwood?
Never watched it.
Of course.
I've never watched it, but I've been to Alcatraz.
You know that Dominic flew to Japan. I gave him a whole list of movies to watch. I had like Pulp Fiction on there, The Godfather, there was Cool Hand Luke. There's all this stuff that would have enriched his existence as a man. And what he chose to watch on the way over there was, let's do a Godzilla marathon, cartoons. It's like, I you know what? I have no connection to today's youth. Before I get too far off. So go back to Bridge Guy. And Dominic's going to flash. There's like a 4-second video of him walking across the bridge. He has a very specific gait. And he's kind of like wobbling along. When I see that guy, it looks like Mrs. Doubtfire plus 40 pounds.
Okay.
I want you to imagine Richard Williams. Is that his name?
No.
Robert, who am I thinking of? Who's Mrs. Doubtfire? Robert Williams? Robin Williams. Yes. One of my favorite, like my top 5 actors in the world. I can't remember his name. looks like him with like hair, like curly, stout face, little chubby, roundish shaped, but more stocky.
Yes.
He looked to be, to me, about, I don't know, 5'7", 5'8", and it's hard to gauge that off of a video.
Yes, but I agree, like 5'7" or 5'8".
I'll just tell you what, he doesn't look like Richard Allen. Richard Allen, I mean, granted, he doesn't have any hair right now, but his face does not match the description. And the eyewitness accounts, there was 2 sketches released of who the possible suspect was.
So
one of them was Bridge Guy, and another one was of a 16-year-old boy. And then I remember people saying, so they really just have no clue who this is then, do they? I mean, that's a pretty big range. The physical description of the guy is anywhere from like 5'4" to 5'10" or something like that. He could weigh anywhere from 130 to 240 pounds. It's like, okay, so if you've just described 80% of the world's population.
Just anybody.
Yeah. Richard Allen, he lived in Delphi. He worked at a CVS there. The images of the sketch artist, Bridge Guy, and the other one were posted in the CVS where he worked. He worked there for years. Everybody saw it, the customers, the employees every day. Nobody called because he doesn't resemble that guy. And then one of the defense attorneys, the former defense attorney, he was interviewing and says, interesting that they arrest that guy. I'm going to go over the probable cause affidavit because there is evidence that leads to his guilt. And I just want to be 100% clear. I'm not saying that this guy is innocent. I just have questions. I suspect that he's probably involved, but I don't know if he's involved. And I have a lot of questions based on unanswered questions in this case. I'm going to try to work through them with all of you. I just don't want you to think that if I'm saying things in support of Richard Allen might not be the guy, that means that I'm defending him in any shape or form. And I'm not. Whoever committed these murders, I just want to get the right person, and I want them to pay severely. I just have questions that it was this guy, Richard Allen. That's all.
I imagine him working at the CVS and looking, if he was him, looking at the picture like, that looks nothing like me.
Yep, that's
Good
not
luck.
me. I guess I'm in the clear. Yeah, it could be that as well. And again, the eyewitness accounts were kind of all over the place. A lot of the witness statements that were taken from back in 2017 and 18 they contradicted themselves to some degrees. To what degree? I don't know if it's relevant or not. I mean, I don't know how much it affects Richard Allen's involvement of it. It's just the eyewitness testimony has been thus far unreliable when you do a real deep dive into it. So I just clicked out on my notes. There's this controversial YouTuber that claims that a woman chatted with Bridge Guy while taking her dogs to use the bathroom at the southeast end of the bridge around 12:30. There's another person that says, well, that's not true at all. There's another Redditor, goes by the name of Bitter Beat Poet, that says the female homeowner who saw a man walking in the neighborhood near the south end of the bridge was not close to the barricades, and she was not walking her dogs. The female homeowner said that she saw a younger guy about a quarter mile south of the south end of the bridge, and when she got in her car and approached him, he left. He was on foot. I'm assuming that that's the younger guy, the 16-year-old that there was a sketch of it. Dominic will post a sketch of it. Maybe I have it right here. So this is the younger version of Bridge Guy, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of speculation over who that might have been. That same homeowner believes that incident was unrelated to the murders, but whatever. That the temperature that day was in the mid-40s. It was a warm day in Indiana. And look, 40 degrees over in Indiana is a lot different than 40 degrees in California. When I was living in Ohio and it was in the 40s on a winter day, for example, well, that's like warm weather. Like you don't need a coat for that. You just walk out in your short and shorts and a shirt or whatever. But in California, you're like, oh my God, it's freezing. I need a parka with a scarf and a beanie.
And the Ugg boots.
I don't know about the Ugg boots, but you know.
Well, that's what happened when I live in Florida. I remember like the weather, the temperature will go down, I don't know, to 70, and everybody was ready. All the girls taking out their Ugg boots. I'm like, No.
I've never been an Ugg boots guy. I'm not even sure if they make those for males.
They make I guess, home slides for men.
I've no, you know what? I'm moving on. I have no opinion. So there is one female juvenile witness that took a photo on the Manon High Bridge. Around 1:23, Libby's father, Derek German, leaves the house. He's headed for Frankfurt on an errand for his mother, Becky Patty. At 1:26 p.m., there's a 16-year-old female witness with a group of friends near the Freedom Bridge. They're getting ready to leave. 16-year-old takes a picture with her phone. Around 1:27, the female witness sends the photo to her mom, and the timing of the taking and sending of this photo later helps this witness remember when she saw BG. Yeah. At 1:30, the 16-year-old female is near the benches near the Freedom Bridge. She notices Bridge Guy, says hello to him. Bridge Guy gave her a look that frightened her, according to her. She passed him on a narrow trail just a few feet away. She said he was roughly 5'6", maybe an inch taller. Law enforcement now claims it's 5'6" to 5'8", so we're reasonably accurate. Yes. I've also heard differing accounts of how tall the main suspect is, Richard Allen. He's either 5'4" or 5'6" or somewhere in between there. He's definitely really short.
5'4", I'm 5'3", so...
Yeah, it's not about... people talk about his physical description. A man that is 5'4" is still strong enough to do whatever was done.
Yes.
But for pure purposes of eyewitness statements and matching him as the guy that was seen on the bridge, it's important for that. So around 1:30-ish, Abby and Libby, they're allowed to go to the bridge if they can get a ride there and ride home. Libby's sister, Kelsey, agreed to give them a ride on their way to their friend's house. And I'll try to summarize this as best I can. All right. So Kelsey German, this is Libby's sister. She had planned to sleep in. The girls were already up when she had woken up. Kelsey had planned she was going to go visit her boyfriend that day. School was not in session, as we'd already described. The girls had a sleepover the night before. She took the girls to the bridge. She arrived around 1:40 p.m., according to her. The last time Kelsey would see Abby or her sister alive again was around that time. And again, that bridge, extremely dangerous, no railings, the ties were rotting, there were some planks missing. Around 3:30 p.m., Derek called Grandma, indicating that the girls were not returning phone calls. Kelsey had a couple missed calls from her grandma, and everybody's freaking out because where are the girls, whatever. Libby's mom was not all that concerned at first when everything was going on. She was not all that worried, but of course, as the day prodded on, she became very worried, like, what the hell? According to the Scene of the Crime podcast, Libby did not call Derek until they arrived at the trails. According to Derek on his Facebook, Libby called as they were pulling away from the house. It's a 7-minute drive from the house to the drop-off point. And according to that podcast, Scene of the Crime, there were arrangements that were made to pick up Libby and Abby between 3 and 3:30. Derek told Libby that he would call when he was close, and so that she and Abby could be at the pickup when he arrived. So around 1:45, Kelsey estimates that she dropped the girls off around 1:38, 1:39. Derek believes they were dropped off around 1:45. Doesn't matter. Around that time. He said he thinks the girls called as they were pulling away from the house. Regardless, Libby's sister, Kelsey, dropped Abby and Libby off at the entrance to the Mary Gerard Nature Preserve. So there is an image. I don't know if it's still up or not, but this is what the entrance to the bridge looks like. And Derek, make sure you link to this photo so people can see what we're talking about. You can see that there's like this kind of gated off area. You kind of walk in there, and that's where you would access the bridge. The parking lot at this entrance is called the Mears Lot. And this is not the main entrance to the trail, which is at the Freedom Bridge. That was further up the road towards Delphi. At 2:07, Libby posted a photo of Abby on her Snapchat. And I think that she took a bunch of Snapchats. There's only one photograph that was preserved because one of her friends took a screenshot of it. And that's the only reason we know it exists. Libby also posted this photo of the bridge. Let me see if I have that. And it was this one of them just kind of screwing around
Oh, yes.
on the bridge, not a care in the world. At 2:07, which is the timestamp on the photo was open, not the time the photo was taken. At 2:28, a tipster who noticed a car at the CPS building is seen leaving on Hoosier Harvestor video. Between 2:15 and 2:30, an approximate time estimate, according to this comment, Libby was off the far southeast end of the bridge when she captured video of her killer walking towards the girls, and that's this infamous video. Now, this video, Dominic's going to link to it. This is Bridge Guy. And notice his gait. I'm going to see if I can mute this. But that's his gait. This is all. It's like a 3-second clip looped over. And they capture his voice on this video. See if I could. So for years, it's always been suspected that this must be the killer. That was the sketch Bridge Guy. And of course, they had drawn a sketch of him and this other younger version of Bridge Guy. And they had no idea. That's all they had to go off of. The cops gave press conferences about what they had. They had this video they played in these press conferences, this audio that they had that was digitally enhanced to try to hope that somebody would recognize the voice, to no avail. For the longest time. It's not known if Bridge Guy said the two words, guys down the hill, all at once, or if they were separate times, because law enforcement originally released just the original words, down the hill, and during one press conference, and then in another one, they released the guys portion of it. I don't know why that was chopped up, why they wouldn't just release it all at once, but that's what happened. BG, Libby, and Abby, they crossed Deer Creek from the south side to the north side. All right, so it's believed that around 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. is around the time when the girls were murdered. Now, there's not a lot of detail about how the girls were murdered. It's all been under wraps. I just know that law enforcement is deeply disturbed by what they found, and it appears to have been a ritualistic style killing, where the bodies were posed in a certain way, for maximum effect or whatever. There's some speculation that the spot where the bodies were found was not where the murders took place. And we don't have all that evidence. A lot of that is just speculation.
I'm surprised that it's been that many years and we don't know much about how the bodies were found.
Well, a lot of it is because law enforcement has not purposely released a lot of the details of the case because ongoing investigation, they don't want to give people information that might sway, like what happened to John Bonet case. I think 8 different people try to confess to her murders or something, like some ridiculous number, but they always got the details wrong because they didn't know all the facts. And now, 30 years later with that case, and, that case is never getting solved.
No, but, they're not, of course, there's a reason why they don't release those details, but with, the New York cases, I don't know, I've seen, that information after 2-3 years, it's released, it's out there. And with this one, I feel like they have kept everything, under locks, and I don't know, it surprises me a little bit.
Well, they definitely have. They definitely have. But here's a problem when you don't release information like that. There's information for example, there is hundreds of pages of Reddit posts that I've gone through, and 98% of it is bullshit. They are speculating. They have no idea what was found. They're making stuff up. It's literally YouTubers staging photographs, trying to reenact the scenes, and people are drawing conclusions off of that. And it's not explicitly known how any of this went down. We know the details. We know the girls went missing. We know how they ended up. We know that there's this video that exists, We know that we have his voice on audio. And that was it. For the public, that's all they have. But let's take a look at the probable cause affidavit that they used to arrest Richard Allen. So this is what they say they have. The undersigned affiant, I submit the following information pursuant to IC 35-3372 as a sworn affidavit setting forth the facts and circumstances known to law enforcement of Carroll County as the basis for probable cause to arrest without a warrant or to establish probable cause for issuance of an arrest warrant for the named above defendant, Richard Allen. So, the facts and circumstances described below would be sufficient basis of a person. All right. So that on February 14th, 2017, victim 1 and victim 2, Libby and Abby, were found deceased in the woods approximately 0.2 miles northeast of the Manon High Bridge in Carroll County. Their bodies were located on the north side of Deer Creek. At the time, the Manon High Bridge trail was an approximately 1 mile gravel trail terminating at the Manon High Bridge. The Manon High Bridge is an abandoned railroad trestle, approximately a quarter mile long, spanning the Deer Creek and Deer Creek Valley on the southeast end of the trail. Approximately 0.7 miles northwest on the trail from the northwestern edge of the Manon High Bridge is the Freedom Bridge, which is a pedestrian bridge spanning State Road 25. About 350 feet west of Freedom Bridge was a former railroad overpass. They're just describing the layout. So, through interviews, reviews of electronic records, review of video at the Hoosier Harvest Store, investigators believe victim 1 and victim 2 were dropped off across from the Mears farm at 1:49 p.m. on February 13th, 2017 by Redacted. The Mears farm is located on the north side of County Road 300 North near an entrance to the trails. A video from victim 2's phone shows that at 2:13 p.m., victim 1 and victim 2 encountered a male subject on the southeast portion of the Manon High Bridge. The male ordered the guys down the hill. Now, in this affidavit, they're taking that as a singular phrase. It just makes me wonder, why would they break it up between two different press conferences? Maybe they're trying to, I guess, preserve some of the details for interrogation purposes. Who knows? I want you to keep this in the back of your head as I read this. That the sheriff of that county was up for re-election 24 days prior to this being released. And so I don't know what that means. Form your own conclusions. I'm just stating that this isn't the most ironclad probable cause affidavit that I've ever read. But let's continue. Where'd I leave off? Okay, so no witnesses saw them after this time. No outgoing communications were found on victim 2's phone after this time. Their bodies were discovered on February 14th, 2017. The video recovered from victim 2's phone shows victim 1 walking southeast on the Manon High Bridge while a male subject wearing a dark jacket and jeans walks behind her. As the male subject approaches victim 1 and 2, one of the victim mentions gun. Near the end of the video, a male is seen and heard telling the girls, guys, down the hill. The girls then begin to proceed down the hill and the video ends. A still photograph taken from the video and the guys down the hill audio was subsequently released to the public to assist investigators in identifying the male. Victim 1 and 2 deaths were ruled as homicides. Clothes were found in the Deer Creek belonging to victim 1 and 2. South of where their bodies were located, there was also a .40 caliber unspent round less than 2 feet away from victim 2's body. Between victim 1 and victim 2's bodies, the round was unspent and had extraction marks on it. Extraction marks. There's going to be at trial a huge fight over what that even means, because they said they matched that round to a gun specifically owned by Richard Allen. It's not known how they tested that. So did they put a .40 cal round and just shoot it off and, the marks? There's going to be a very strong battle over how that test was conducted and what's the relevance of it, what's the reliability of it even, what does that mean? But it's significant. And a .40 cal bullet is not a .22 cal, which is basically a BB gun coming out of a rifle. That's meant to cause great bodily harm. It's meant to end lives. It's a significant round. So interviews were conducted with 3 juveniles. They've redacted the names. They advised that they were on Manon High Bridge Trail on February 13th of 2017. They advised they were walking on the trail toward Freedom Bridge to go home when they encountered a male walking from Freedom Bridge toward the Manon High Bridge. Redacted describes the male as kind of creepy and advised he was wearing like blue jeans, a really light blue jacket. And his hair was gray, maybe a little brown, and he did not really show his face. She advised the jacket was a duck canvas type jacket. Advised that she said hi to the male, but he just glared at him. She recalled him being in all black and had something covering his mouth. She described him as not very tall with a bigger build. She said he was not bigger than 5'10". That bothers me. So if I see somebody that's 5'5", for example, I wouldn't say, they're not bigger than 6 foot. I would say, they look about your height. Around 5'5" or so. I don't know.
I guess it depends on your height and what you define
That's
as.
true. Perception.
Yes.
Maybe that's meaningless. It's just, it bothers me her saying 5'10" specifically. So Blank advised that he was wearing a black hoodie, black jeans, black boots. She stated he had his hands in his pockets. Showed investigators photographs she took on her phone while she was on the trail that day. The photographs included a photo of the Manon High Bridge taken at 12:43. Another one taken at 1:26 on the bench east of the Freedom Bridge. Redacted advised after she took the photo of the bench, they started walking back toward Freedom Bridge. She advised that was when they encountered the man who matched the description of the photograph taken from the victim two's phone. She described the man she encountered on the trail as wearing a blue or black windbreaker. She advised the jacket had a collar. He had his hood up from the clothing underneath his jacket. That matches the guy in the video, what they're saying. She advised he was wearing baggy jeans. He was taller than her. She advised her head came up to approximately his shoulder. She advised, she said hi to the man, and he said nothing back. She stated he was walking with a purpose, like he knew what he was, where he was going. She stated he had his hands in his pocket, kept his head down. She advised she did not get a good look at his face, but believed him to be a white male. The girls advised after encountering the male, they continued their walk across Freedom Bridge and the old railroad bridge over Old State 25. So investigators spoke with another person who advised she was on the trails on February 13th of 2017. Video from the Hoosier Harvest Store captured Redacted's vehicle traveling eastbound at 146 toward the entrance across from the Mears farm. She advised she saw 4 juvenile females walking on the bridge over Old State Road 25 as she was driving underneath her on her way to park. She advised that there was no other cars parked across from the Mears farm when she parked. She advised she walked to the Manon High Bridge and observed a male matching the description. And she says a lot of the same stuff. She described him as being a white male wearing blue jeans, blue jean jacket, advised he was standing at the first platform, approximately 50 feet from her. She advised she turned around at the bridge and continued her walk. Advised approximately halfway between the bridge and the parking area across from the Mears farm, she passed 2 girls walking towards the bridge. She said she believed the girls were victims 1 and 2, Abby and Libby. Video from the Hoosier Harvest Store shows at 149 a white car matching vehicle traveling away from the entrance from the Mears farm. She says there's no other adults that she saw other than the male on the bridge. Her vehicle is seen on Hoosier Harvest Store video at 2:14 p.m., leaving westbound from the trails. She drew a diagram of where they saw the vehicle parked, and other diagrams generally matched as to the area the vehicle was parked and the manner of which it was parked. Investigators spoke with another witness who stated that she was traveling east on 300 North. Again, she observed the same male subject walking west, north side of 300 North. Advised it was a guy that gave the same description, blue collar jacket, blue jeans, was muddy and bloody. Now, there's been some correction of that. muddy and bloody. It's since been redacted to just, oh, well, it wasn't bloody, just muddy.
Okay.
Significant because, I mean, I don't know. We have these conflicting reports from these witnesses. They're giving these statements, but as we get deeper into trial, these statements that have been given are starting to shift ever so subtly. What does that mean? I don't know. But this witness, she said, she further stated that it appeared he had gotten into a fight. Investigators were able to determine from watching the video from the Hoosier Harvest Store that Redacted was traveling on CR 300 North at approximately 3:37. So through interviews, electronic data, photographs, and video from the Hoosier Harvest Store, investigators determined that there were other people on the trail that day after 2:13. Those people were interviewed, and none of those individuals encountered the male subject referenced above, witnessed by the juvenile girls and the other two witnesses that we've just gone over. Their names have been redacted. Investigators reviewing prior tips encountered a tip narrative from an officer who interviewed Richard Allen in 2017. This was his narrative. Mind you, this is all hearsay. In this affidavit, this is hearsay. This is another officer's interpretation of what happened, is really how you have to gauge this. But this is what he says. So Mr. Allen was on the trail between 1:30 and 3:30. He parked at the Old Farm Bureau building and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw three females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did he speak with them. And again, we're talking about Richard Allen, the subject, the main suspect right now. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated there were vehicles parked at the High Ridge trailhead. However, he didn't pay attention to them. He did not take any photo or videos. His cell phone did not list an IMEI, but did have the following. I'm not sure what IMEI means, but it looks like these are coordinates. Potential follow-up information. Who were the three girls walking in the area of Freedom Bridge? Investigator believes Mr. Allen was referring to the former Child Protective Services building, as there was not a Farm Bureau building in the area, nor had there ever been. Investigators believe the females he saw included two of the witnesses that we previously mentioned. Due to the time that they were leaving the trail, the time he reported getting to the trail, and the descriptions of the descriptions the three females gave. How much longer is this? I promise I'm not going to verbatim read the whole thing. All right. Investigators discovered Richard Allen owned two vehicles in 2017. There was a 2016 black Ford Focus and a 2006 gray Ford 500. Investigators observed a vehicle that resembled Allen's 2016 Ford Focus on the Hoover Harvest Store video at 1:27 p.m., traveling westbound on CR 300 North in front of the Hoosier Harvest Store, which coincided with his statement when he arrived at 1:30 at the trails. So right away, why is this even significant? Because it's circumstantial. He said he was there. They caught him on video being there. They got his car being there at a very specific time, which is around the time when the murders occurred. People saw him there. He saw other people there that matched the other victims. So there's not a doubt. There was not a reasonable doubt that he was at the place the crime was committed at the time that it was committed. Circumstantial, right? But it gets deeper. Let's continue. And by the way, that's not my problem with the case. He could have been there completely. There could have been other people there. That doesn't mean they're guilty of the murder. On October 13th, in 2022, Richard was interviewed again by investigators. We're talking about 5 years after the fact at this point. He advised he was on the trails on February 13th. It's already been established. He stated he saw juvenile girls on the trails east of Freedom Bridge and that he went onto the Manon High Bridge. That's not only been corroborated by him. The other witnesses corroborate that statement as well. So we got to assume that that's true. Richard Allen further stated he went out onto the Manon High Bridge to watch the fish. Could we just examine that statement for a minute? Hey, Dominic, are you a fishing? Are you a fisher?
No.
Of fish? Are you? I don't know. I don't want to form too many conclusions because I'm not a nature guy like that. Oh, I just want to go out and watch the birds. I'm going to go down in the creek and watch fish. If I was going to do something like that, it would be like a byproduct of me going down to smoke a cigar down by the river or something like that, or to smoke a pipe of some of legal tobacco, not of anything else, but or to have like a whiskey or like a campfire to go watch the nature. But I cannot imagine a grown adult stating that I'm going down to the river to watch the fish. Usually that's prefaced with, I'm just going down to take a walk. I'm going down to, I don't know, meditate on life.
And the few people that say stuff like that it's usually more like birds, it's because they're like aficionados with like the species, and they know a lot about the different types, not just somebody.
And I know there's a lot of people out there like that.
Yeah, but
because
just
it's,
watch the fish in general and not nothing else. That's strange.
As an alibi, it bothers me simply because it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, he could have just said, I was just going to take a walk. I was on a nature hike. He could have just said that. But he says to watch the fish. I don't know if it makes his statement more credible. There's worlds as his defense turn where I can make that make sense. Of, well, he said he was watching the fish because that's what he's going to do. He wasn't going there to meditate. What difference does that make? And the answer is, you're probably right. Maybe it's nothing. It's just an odd statement of purpose for why he was there. Okay. So later in the statement, he said that he walked out to the first platform on the bridge. He stated he then walked back, sat on a bench on the trail, and then left. He stated he parked his car on the side of an old building. He told investigators that he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. Go back to Bridge Guy. That's what he described. Yes. He just described those clothes. So,
but at the same time, those clothes, they're not that different from what probably 80% of the people in that weather wear.
I mean, well, maybe not, but the colors are okay. How many colors are there in the spectrum? There's like 8 crayons in the regular box. So you could have like a black hoodie, you could have a blue, you could have a red, you could have like a maroon, you could have a, I don't know. It's the color combination that brings the probability into question. So he was wearing the exact same color scheme of clothes that was confirmed by 2 eyewitnesses, and they've got this Bridge Guy on video. So that is pretty good circumstantial evidence so far.
It is.
So far. Now, without the other stuff I'm about to tell you about the Odinist cult society, you would think, slam dunk, we got this guy. Not only that, he confessed to his wife, to his mom, not to an interrogator. You know, we'll talk about that in a minute. But let me continue with this. So he stated, well, he advised he may have been wearing some type of head covering as well. He further claimed he saw no one else except for the juvenile girls he saw east of the Freedom Bridge. He told investigators that he owns firearms and that they were at his house. Richard Allen's wife, Kathy Allen, whom he confessed to the crimes to, by the way, in a jailhouse call, which ended abruptly when she hung up on his ass. Now, I don't know what was said. I just know that they know about it, and it's going to come out in trial.
So classic.
Gosh, man. I have questions to ask you about that when I finish with this. So she confirmed, Richard Allen's wife confirmed that he did indeed have guns and knives at his residence. He also stated that Richard still owns a blue Carhartt jacket. On October 13th of 22, investigators executed a search warrant of his residence. Among other items, officers located jackets, boots, knives, firearms, including a Sig Sauer Model P 226 40 caliber pistol with serial number U625-627 40 caliber ammunition. Right between October 14th of 22 and October 19th, the Indiana State Police Laboratory performed an analysis on Allen's gun. The laboratory performed a physical examination and classification of the firearm, function test, barrel and overlength measurement, test firing, ammunition component characterization, microscopic comparison, and NIBIN. The laboratory determined the unspent round located within 2 feet of victim 2's body had been cycled through Richard Allen's weapon. The laboratory remarked, an identification opinion is reached when the evidence exhibits an agreement of class characteristics and a sufficient agreement of individual marks. Sufficient agreement is related to the significant duplication of random striated impressed marks as evidenced by the correspondence of a pattern or combination of patterns or surface contours. The interpretation of identification is subjective in nature and based on relevant scientific research and the reporting examiner's training and experience, which is boilerplate forensic language, which means nothing, absolutely nothing. So they conducted these tests, and I happen to know that there is varying degrees of those tests. Which specific tests were run, the manner of the test, the conditions, is all going to be something that's going to be one of the main fights in this case when it inevitably goes to trial. The prosecution has to prove it was a good test. The defense is going to make all kinds of noise about, oh, this is nonsense, and you can't rely on this test, or you should have tested it this way, or these were not the right conditions, or how could you possibly form this conclusion when, there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of stuff. So investigators then ran the firearm and found that the firearm was purchased by Richard Allen in 2001. Allen voluntarily came to the Indiana State Police Post on October 26. He spoke with investigators and stated that he never allowed anyone to use or borrow that gun. And when asked about the unspent bullet, he did not have an explanation of why the bullet was found between the bodies of victim 1 and victim 2. Although I think an obvious explanation is, hey, it's like that. What's that movie? Meet the Parents? When Ben Stiller is like going off on his tirade, hey, so do you think that the luggage people, like in a big grand conspiracy to turn a profit, decided to make one of the same kind of suitcase? It's like, hey, this isn't the only 40 cal bullet in the world. There's millions of them, billions of them. Coincidental, whatever. They're going to argue that. Carroll County, okay, did I skip something? Yeah, he again admitted he was on the trail, but denied knowing victims 1 or 2, denied any involvement in their murders. Carroll County Sheriff's Department Detective, redacted, has been part of the investigation since it started in 2017. He has had an opportunity to review and examine evidence gathered in this investigation. The detective, along with other investigators, believe the evidence gathered shows that Richard Allen is the male subject seen in the video, who forced the victims down the hill. Further, that the victims were forced down the hill by Richard Allen and led to the location where they were murdered. Through the statements and photographs of the juvenile females and the statement of redacted and the other redacted were at the southeast edge of the trail at 1243 east of Freedom Bridge and walked across the former railroad, and they're going back to describe. They believe the same guy, and they're just kind of repeating themselves at this point. But yeah, they're concluding. That was the basis. So they arrested him based off of eyewitness statements, circumstantial evidence of his weapon that he owns, that there was a unspent 40 caliber shell near the victims, which is the same kind of ammunition that goes in his gun. They state that they conducted several tests to confirm that it was a gun that was expelled from his weapon. Presumably, that's where they're going for. And they have his confession that initially, not that he murdered them, but he was definitely there at the same time that everything went down. He was wearing the same clothes. It is if all you need is probable cause, it's a pretty compelling case. So yeah, there is a pretty solid case related to why they arrested Richard Allen. And look, it's an investigation that's been going on for years. And what is the case? All right, let's just break it down. He told police he was on the trail the day the girls went missing. His description of the clothing he was wearing that day matches the clothing of the suspect in the video on the victim's phone. There was a vehicle resembling his 2016 Ford Focus that was observed around the trail around 1:30. Indiana State Police Laboratory determines that there was an unspent round, and we talked about the model that belonged to his gun, and they say that it came from his gun or fit his description. how could all of these things happen? These 5 coincidental things happen in the same place at the same time. We're going that's the circumstantial case. The ballistics test, like I said, it's going to be crucial. How do they conduct the test? Both sides are going to have stuff to say about it. But to me, what's most compelling to me is that on April 3rd, just recently, Richard Allen makes a phone call to his wife, Kathy. And while he's sitting in his maximum security prison, which is not insignificant as you're awaiting trial. I can't imagine a single circumstance, and again, his attorneys have not, they've resisted him being held here, but I can't imagine a single time where I would want my client who was awaiting trial to be housed in a maximum care facility for any reason, for the degradation of mental health, the 23-hour lockdown, 23-1, like you said, the lack of visitation privileges. You don't have the ability to communicate with them. It's just one thing to be there and quite another to be in county. I've heard people describe county literally, oh, it's not that bad. Sit there, read books. You make these crazy ramen recipes and, I mean, it's not like the Hilton, but
of course,
it's not maximum security lockdown either, So you have all this. So he's sitting there in this facility. He's been there now for some time. In that phone call, he admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. And investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail William and Liberty Germain, and admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offense as charged. And then his wife, Kathy, just basically hung up on him. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, why is he making confessions on the phone? Everybody knows that those are listened to. No, his attorney didn't tell him not to do that.
Well, obviously his attorney didn't tell him to confess.
No, of course, but
I'll tell you what. I always tell my clients, look, I know, just be careful what you say on the phone. Everybody's listening to everything that you say. Don't talk about the case at all.
Exactly.
Don't bring up anything about the case. Don't bring my name up. Don't bring up anybody's name up. Keep it on family stuff, unrelated to your case, whatever. But if you're sitting there and you've been there for over a year and you could see the picture, and Dominic, put a picture here of his before and after. Before, he looked like a fairly robust, stout guy. He looked closer to Bridge Guy. And again, I don't think he looks like Bridge Guy, but he looked like he was healthy. I mean, not like in immaculate shape, but he looked like he was healthy and, he was getting all of his nutrients and he was not starved for food or anything. He looks like he's lost about 100 pounds.
That's a lot.
He looks like he's literally in a concentration camp. His face is sunken in and drawn. His forearms have reduced down to the size of sticks. He looks sickly. He looks maniacal. He looks unhinged. And I just think that it's taken a toll on his mental faculties and all. And here's the issue. The fact that he's in there has opened the door for the defense to say that whatever confession that you got out of this guy was a result of the inhumane practices of keeping him housed in here when he's supposed to be presumed innocent, and he's fighting tooth and nail for his innocence, and you're treating him like a lab rat. Of course, he's losing his mind, and you're trying to convince him for over a year now that he's the guy that did this, and you've broken him. And false confessions are a thing.
Yes,
and they usually occur in situations where you feel like you've lost control, have no control over what's going on, and people are constantly, if it's not a single interrogator, it's the entire universe, it's the entire context of being confined to a cell for 23 hours a day for over a year, no contact with your family, you can't really talk to your attorneys, and you're having a mental breakdown. He appears to be mentally ill, and he's acting out. There's all kinds of details that have come out about his living conditions and how he's appearing to be just crazy.
Yes.
Mental health. Here is what his defense attorneys say. Now, look, about that, nobody's really heard all of the details in the confessions, but from the attorneys, there's not a lot of details in the confessions. They say that he was heavily medicated at the time, which makes sense.
At which time?
When he made the confessions.
Oh, okay.
Like, as he's sitting there now,
Yes.
they're medicating him. I don't know what the medications are. Harsh prison confessions usually lead to false confessions, or sometimes they do. But again, usually it's under interrogation scenarios. He made this claim to his wife. He made another one to his mom. No one's heard the confessions except the investigators, maybe the defense team. It wasn't just one confession. It was on at least 5 or 6 different times. One of the calls was to his mom. And he just basically says, I'm the guy. There's some people out there that think that there was more than one person involved other than Richard. There was word on the street. Like the locals are saying, hey, the word on the street was that Richard Allen was like in bars and stuff, like bragging about being involved in the murders. There was one person, the theory goes that there's one person waiting on the property. The other person pulled guns at the gunpoint. They met down at the creek, and that they go to the location where the murders were actually committed. And then they dragged the bodies and staged them where they were found. And that's one of the theories going on. But okay. Attorney Librado has this to say. And again, so normally, and we've even said now on the show, normally when you're charged with a crime, they put you in county, right? And that's full of people that are waiting for their trials, low-level offenders or whatever. What do you think, what do you make of him being transferred to this maximum security place?
Did they ever explain why he was transferred there or no?
I mean, I'm sure there's explanations. I don't have a logical reason to point to as to why they needed to do that.
The only thing that I can think of, if it's not what he did, it will be for his protection.
Yeah, but even in county, they could isolate you.
Yeah, they can isolate him.
You don't need to be in a max facility for that, for protection purposes. So he was put into the Westerville Correctional Facility first before he was moved to where he's at right now, Wabash Valley Correctional. It's about 200 miles south. His former attorney, Librado's saying that when he visited him, number one, he had to drive 4 hours each way. Have you ever had to do that? You got these clients that are like out there and you got to drive to like, I don't know, Bakersfield. I used to have, when I was working for our former employer.
That's what I was going to say. That's when I used to do that.
I went to Delano County in the middle of nowhere, like a 3-hour drive down to make this jail visit that would last an hour. It was a full day event. Horrible, awful. But even then, it was a state prison facility. I had the ability to sit down at a table with him and talk like attorney and client. This guy is stating that there was a 4-hour drive each way. At Wabash, they were not set up for visitation. They are not set up for visitation. So they were in a makeshift kitchen. He was in a cell. They had to stand 6 feet back. He's talking him through a slot where they put the food tray. We couldn't hand him documents, couldn't have him sign documents. His attorney goes on to say was not conducive to meaningful conversation. I couldn't have been prepared for trial if that's how everything was going to go. He says, I've never had a murder client held pre-trial in a max security facility being treated like Hannibal Lecter. And if you see him in court, you see him being wheeled around. He's literally shackled, hands close to his chest. By all accounts, he's been a model citizen while in prison. So it's not that he has like behavioral issues. Locked down for 23 hours a day. And then there's Odinist guards at the facility that had to be told to stop wearing the patches. And one of them was literally a tattoo on his face. So what in the hell is Odinism? I've been alluding to it all of this time. All right, so Odinism is a religious sect that attempts to revive ancient Norse religious beliefs and practices of pre-Christian Europe. I'm getting this literally from populismstudies.org. It's an educational website, but this is historically what it's been. Asatru, which is another name for Odinism, is not in itself a racist religion. It's mostly the mainstream Odinist practitioners are legitimate, like they have Christian beliefs, but they're not white nationalists. But what's happened in recent years is that there has been this influx of white nationalists that have adopted this as a religion and used it to organize and stage protest and other violent things, leading to potentially sacrificial practices, which would be consistent with the murders in this case of Abby and Libby. So other white supremacists have adopted a more explicitly racial form of Asatru that is most frequently termed Odinism. It appeals to white supremacists because it is a warrior religion in contrast to the ostensibly pacifist Christianity, and because they consider it a tribal religion for people of European descent, as opposed to the more universal Christianity, which also descended from Judaism. Odinists and racists will often describe themselves as racialist, tribal, or folkish. Odinism is an ancient religion that honors Odin, Thor, Frigg, Freyr, Freyja, Heimdall, and other deities from the Norse pantheon. Some adherents view Odinism as synonymous with Asatru, which means true to the gods, but others do not. In addition, some see it as synonymous with Wotanism or Wotanism, but others disagree. In Scandinavia, the religion may be called Fornsed. A formal union of some groups in Odinism and Asatru were attempted in 1997, but it dissolved in 2002. In recent years, Norse paganism has been referred to as heathenry, but many avoid the term. And so there's a whole 1,000-year history of this religion. As far as the white supremacist, scary faction of this religion, this was taken from an article in 2017, shortly after the murders had occurred. So they started off with an article, and it paints this picture. They start off, the 3 men in Virginia wanted to start a race war. They planned to rob a jewelry store and use the money to stockpile guns, ammo, and explosive. Then they would charge into churches and synagogues, slaughtering as many people as possible in the name of their religion. The man in Kansas wanted to kill as many Jewish people as possible, so he drove to 2 Jewish centers where he shot and killed 3 people, all of them Christians. He told the court that sentenced him to death that he had mistaken his victims for Jews. I wanted to kill Jews, not people. Across the country, in Spokane, Washington, another man plotted to kill President Barack Obama. Prosecutors say he planned a final solution, a battle that would ultimately be won by stealing nuclear material for dirty bombs or flying hijacked airplanes into buildings. These men, and possibly thousands more like them across the United States, share a common religious ideology. They are white supremacists who have turned to an ancient heathen religion known most commonly as Odinism. In at least 6 cases since 2001, professed racist Odinists have been convicted of plotting or pulling off domestic terrorism attacks, according to a review of terrorism cases by Reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting. And so it's very closely resembles Nazism.
Yes.
But it is not specifically that. Although their symbol, some have speculated that, oh, well, you could, if you look hard enough, you could see a swastika in there, but it's not really. But they definitely have their symbolism. Now, here is the concerns with that group in this case. So what the defense team had released this 130-page brief about why they believe that Odinists are involved. And initially when they threw it out there, get out of here with your Odinist stuff. And nobody really knew, including this attorney Libredo. He's like, Odinists, I've never heard about any of that before. As he read more into it, he started to realize that, wait a minute, I'm like surrounded by these people. There was like these symbols that he could recognize that he wouldn't have known what it was, but now he knew what it was, and these people were starting to circle around him.
I don't know why, and I don't think it's one of the cases that we have discussed, but I feel like I have seen some documentary where there was also allegations of people following the same religion or cult.
Well, we've definitely covered cases where there was suspected cult-like
Yes.
behavior. For example, the Christopher Watts case.
Yes.
Nicole Kessinger is in that sex cult. She calls like her 78-year-old priest.
But
after
this
the
one, like with
murders.
the symbols and everything, I don't know why.
I've never heard of the Odinist thing before this case, literally. I don't remember if we've covered a case specifically dealing with this level, but get this. Get this. This is what bothers Attorney
Put it
Libredo.
here.
So, like we said, Odinism, it predates Christianity. Odin is the god, their god. It's been hijacked by white supremacists, nationalists, like he says. And one of their practices is ritualistic killing, sacrifice. And they believe, the defense believed that the girls, one of the girls was sacrificed in this case, and the other one was just killed as a byproduct of the sacrifice. Which, Jesus, it's infuriating.
Yeah.
Some of the people who live in Delphi were very brazen about their Odinistic beliefs on social media accounts, including the sergeant in charge of keeping Mr. Odin safe in Westville, where he's currently being housed. Sergeant Jones was literally wearing a patch on his uniform that said, "In Odin, we trust."
Oh, wow.
On his freaking uniform. We're not speculating
How
here.
is that even allowed?
Well, the judge ordered the warden to make him stop. The judge couldn't even order him to make him stop. The judge ordered the warden to tell them to knock it off with the Odin stuff, which is beyond bizarre. I've literally never encountered that in my entire career, some kind of crazy cult member thing going on like that with the correctional officers. It just bothers me that I understand why this attorney is spooked. If, he starts learning about these symbols and all of a sudden he's driving around, he's going to local CVS, he sees a car pull up and it's got literally like these Odin symbols on it and these phrases, "In Odin we trust," and it's going to freak somebody out.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, Sergeant Jones, he also had a tattoo under his right eye. It looks a lot like an Odin sphere. Dominic, flash a graphic on that, what that looks like. So he had a tattoo under his right eye. He had a tattoo on his right forearm that looked like the interlocking triangles that could be found on his Facebook page. Confinement officers at the county jail aren't even allowed to have facial hair, but they're over here walking around with facial tattoos. I was a security guard once, like one of my first jobs ever. I made $7 an hour. I was 18 years old, and I was working the graveyard shift, and I would, it was like from 10 to 7 a.m., and I'd sit there in my little booth, and I would do my homework. But I was not allowed to have facial hair. I didn't have much back then, but I remember that whole thing. These guys are walking around with face tattoos. Why would the warden allow that, for one? What was the exception? What's really going on over there? What's the level of involvement in this group? And are they part of the mainstream faction of the Odin religion that's been around for thousands of years? Or are they part of this new white supremacist faction that has sanctioned the murder of these two little girls, one of them for sacrificial purposes, and ordered Richard Allen or set him up to take the fall? Is that what we're doing?
Could be.
Or is he also known as himself? And that doesn't sound like he is. He had no idea what Odin even was until this case started, according to his defense attorneys. And so I don't have all of the answers. And listen, could I just get ahead of this right now? I know that a lot of you in the comments are going to come in here and say, "Hey, you didn't talk about this and that, and what about all these other things? And you were severely misinformed." Look, I am aware that there are thousands of different theories floating around there about this case, about evidence that's, some of it's made up, some of it's real. You don't know which is which because I don't know which is which. The attorneys don't know what it is. All I'm saying is this. It's not very often where I see an attorney talk like this. He gives this interview and he says, "You know what? I've been a criminal defense attorney for a long time. And most of the time, I'm under no illusion that my client is innocent." And he even made a remark that there's a difference between I believe he's innocent beyond a reasonable doubt, and I believe that there's a difference between that and being actually innocent. And he says, I have no doubt in my mind that Richard Allen is not the guy. And I don't say that about any of my clients ever. I have no problem saying that, you know, whatever, he might be guilty. But he just looked in that interview that he was freaked out by the people that were around him. He's being very careful with what he had to say. I don't think it had much to do with the gag order, to be honest with you. And he just looked like he is spooked, as if he has stumbled upon something that is floating around in the underbelly of Delphi, Indiana, that he didn't know existed, and maybe he wishes he never knew existed. So what it seems like, he's discovered the Matrix, and he just wants to take the blue pill now. Enough. I don't want to know that is there. I don't know what to make of it. We're not going to solve this case anytime soon. There's a whole trial. There was actually a trial supposed to start May 13th, I think was the original date. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to start then. I think this is going to get kicked out to next year, probably. Okay. But what do you think about all of that?
It's a lot. I mean, up until the involvement of Odinism.
Odinism.
Yes. It all sounded like, you know, your typical case. They found the guy, circumstantial evidence and all that.
Yeah.
But then when you get to that part of the cult or religion being involved and the
it freaks
guards,
me out a little bit.
It's like, whoa, like this is something bigger, more complicated. And I don't know if the prosecutor is going to be able to like get into all that, and the defense attorney.
Well, they're going to have to. And I'll tell you what, I know that the attorneys got kicked off of the case, the original ones, the current ones, because there was a leaked photograph. Mm-hmm. That was not widely disseminated to the public. I just know that I don't know how the bodies were staged, but I feel like it's known enough that it's pretty gruesome, and nobody should ever have to see that. Mm-hmm. If it was this ritualistic styling that was intended to be found to send whatever message to Odin, the god, or whatever, I don't know. But if it was specifically staged in a manner that could be proven is a remnant of this offshoot of white nationalistic Odinism, then I think you've opened up a wide door for reasonable doubt. And look, I don't know if Richard Allen is innocent or not. I have believed since he was arrested that he was the guy. He confessed. Obviously he did. Mm-hmm. But I will admit that initially he's like, so I was expecting to see the bridge guy, photo, sketch, whatever, on the video. He does not look like bridge guy. I kind of forced him, I guess they got their guy. They must have DNA. They must have some other. They do have eyewitness. They have a matching clothes. And they do have some circumstantial stuff. He just doesn't look like bridge guy to me. He just doesn't. He doesn't. And then you throw in this Odinism stuff and that they are involved in like various aspects of law enforcement closely circulating around Richard Allen. It just gives me pause. And the fact that Libredo was freaked out kind of freaks me out a little.
Yes.
I've been around attorneys all my life. You know what's funny? I was telling my wife yesterday, we're going through YouTube videos about the Delphi stuff. Mm-hmm. And every time I clicked on another attorney talking about the Delphi case, you know what? I'm not listening to this. I can't listen to this video. Attorneys are like my least favorite people to listen to talk. I hate attorneys. I just want to put that. I can't listen to another attorney speak unless they're cool, and most of them are not. So it was difficult for me to find reliable information that I could stomach on this case. I just know I've kind of relied on what has been published by the defense attorneys, because I know that there's all kinds of crazy theories out there. And what is out there that is known right now is very scant. And when this when this trial takes place, there's going to be a lot of revelations, sort of like what's going on with the Karen Reed case. You were here for Karen Reed, weren't you, when we did that?
I think so.
We did, yeah, we did. I did another follow-up video after that. But yeah, it's a fascinating case that honestly kind of scares me.
No, I'm invested and I want to know what happens at trial.
Well, we might see probably next year if it somehow comes to pass that it's going to come out this month or sometime soon. We're definitely going to keep our eyes on it. But yeah, it's a crazy case. That is my take on this case, the Delphi Murders. People have been wanting us to cover this for like months. So I finally, well, my wife did specifically. This is her request. I'm fulfilling. She needs to know that, or otherwise she'll get mad at me. But yeah, it's a wild one. I thought I had a good handle on it, but now I'm not even sure. I don't have any good documentaries to recommend to get caught up with it, because the ones that I've seen are all old.
Yes.
And like a lot of the new stuff that's coming out with Richard Allen and the confessions, and there's been some motions to try to get some of the confessions thrown out for various different reasons. I don't got time to get into it now, but it's a compelling case. I don't know which direction to go. I don't know whether or not to point the finger at Richard Allen. I just know this. I want whoever did it to pay. I want to make sure we got the right guy. And if indeed there is some Odinistic spin off to all of this, I want it investigated to the roots, and I want to get to the bottom of it, and I want the appropriate people to pay. Because imagine that Richard Allen wasn't the guy, and he's sitting there in a max security prison for like last year, and now he just confessed on accident to his wife because his mental health is failing, and now he's going to go, oh, you were acquitted, but good luck, go back to your life. He no longer has a job, no longer has a house, his wife is gone, his kids are gone. I don't know if he has kids or not. His family is looking at him all weird. His health has been severely compromised, probably taken years off of his life, and he's not the actual guy. Imagine if that were true, and I don't know if it's true. If he's the actual guy, then he's getting what he deserved. I just don't know what to think yet, and so I'm trying to reserve judgment on those grounds. That's all I have to say for this episode of this portion of the show related to the Delphi Murders. I think it's time that we go into Family Law After Dark. For everybody listening to the show so far, if you're not interested in our family law advice that we give at the end of our full podcast, then now's the time to click off. But if you've made it, if you've stuck with us this far, and for all of our returning listeners, it's time for us to engage in, I never get this right. I always try to make it so smooth, it never works out. Family Law After Dark. Purple Haze. I wish it was called Purple Haze. By the way, if you're driving around with the children in the car, or some long trip or whatever, now's the time to check out. This is not a show for children. This portion of it, we talk about sensitive subject matter. But we've missed you on the family law segment. You missed last week's episode. Melissa filled in on your place.
It was last week's. And I think the one before, because I needed to go, remember?
You're right. Melissa's filled in for you 2 weeks in a row.
Yes, because I had to pick up my sister.
I remember.
Yes.
So, all right. You're like, I really got to go. All right, just go. Just go.
Yes.
Leave. Fine. I'm do it without you. All right. So, for the purposes of these hypotheticals, these are all user submissions. Oh, the one you missed last week was from one of our most loyal listeners. We did her case. Yeah, it was one about sexual harassment in the workplace. I wish you were in there for that one. I wanted to get your perspective. Melissa did her best. She actually did really good.
Yes.
Let's get started. This lady, she's 53 years old, in the process of getting divorced from her husband, who's also 53. He has been a stay-at-home dad for our 2 children for their entire lives. He had a career before they were born. We've been married 30 years. We were unhappy for much of our marriage, and after years of asking to go to counseling and being denied, I couldn't take it anymore, especially now that our kids are older. During the time between deciding to divorce and moving out, I attempted to discuss finances, begin planning for our future. He refuses to discuss, so I finally moved out. We agreed to use a collaborative agreement to minimize cost. So in January of 22, I told him I wanted a divorce. May of 22, I told our kids that we were going to get divorced, moved into the guest room. In October of that same year, I moved out. In 2023, We were working with our lawyers and financial advisor to attempt to come to an agreement that worked for both of us. We came to a relatively solid understanding, and then since then things have halted. As the sole earner, I am not fighting giving him alimony, half of my 401k, etc. I'm also paying for our children's college and cars. We spoke again last week, and he is trying to add things to the agreement. I'm barely making ends meet as it is, and he has a part-time job earning $15 an hour. That's not even minimum wage anymore in California. You know that?
Yes, I know.
The $20 an hour thing, although that only applies to like the big chain restaurants. Mm-hmm. Anytime I bring up that he could make decent money, it's halted with anger. I understand that he stayed home with their kids, but they're almost out of the house. I've agreed to let him stay in our house until our youngest goes off to college. So at this point, I don't know what to do. I don't want to sue him. It'll cost a ton of money. I don't know if I should just wait until the youngest is out of the house and see if he will start making moves. Then I'm at a loss. I find myself angry and depressed anytime we talk. I've spent 15 years in a miserable marriage. I know he wasn't happy either. I think he was just okay with being unhappy. Do you have any suggestions? I'm currently paying him $2,000 a month alimony plus car payment, house payment, child support. I'm considering lowering what I pay in alimony until he starts to participate, but I don't want that to backfire. I can't continue living in limbo. I'm going to give you dibs on this one. Go for it, Ileana. Super lawyer. Let's see. What do you got? I already know what I'm going to tell her.
First of all, like, is that alimony and all that a court order? Because it doesn't seem like it.
You and I are thinking the same way.
Like,
it's an agreement.
It's an agreement, and I think she's overpaying.
Yes. I was going to say, why is she paying the car payment and the house payment and child support? Well, she's got to pay child support. And alimony. Yeah. On top of alimony. She has no obligations to pay for any of those bills. Mm-hmm. I mean, other than alimony and child support.
Yes.
That's all. Mm-hmm. The fact that out of the goodness of her heart, she has agreed to pay these utilities, the car payment, house payment, whatever, fine. Why are we not selling the house is my question. Yes. Just get rid of it. Take half the equity. He'll get his half of the equity. Matter of fact, if you just want a clean break, why don't you, if he wants to stay there and live there, whatever, because of the sake of the youngest, why not just give him the house in exchange for termination of alimony?
Mm-hmm. He's going to have to find out how to pay the mortgage, but...
No, it's his problem.
That's his problem, yes.
Yeah, talk him into it. And then his $15 an hour job, he will get a better paying job out of necessity, but you wash your hands of it.
Yes.
It seems to me, I mean, that's the advice that I would start there. Why are you paying these extra bills? Mm-hmm. As far as the rest of it,
I mean,
married 30 years. I mean, gosh, man.
And 15 of them, they were unhappy. Well, unfortunately, in the divorce process, like, that's going to mean nothing. I'm sorry that you didn't act up earlier, but...
You know, one of our viewers, Luann, she's one of our most frequent commenters. She said that most of the time when people are married, one person is 100% happy and the other is not. And I disagree with that statement.
Me too.
Nobody's 100% happy in any marriage that's ever existed. Mm-hmm. It's always varying degrees of unhappiness. Mm-hmm. It's this idea that everybody, because we're entitled as human beings, we think that we deserve to be happy at all times. And anytime we experience unhappiness, we construe that as we're in a bad marriage. No, you're in a constructive marriage. And, you know, overcoming your unhappiness is part of the gig.
I mean, that's different from saying that there's usually one person more involved, but I think usually that person that is more involved changes throughout the marriage.
Yeah.
Maybe, but like 100% happy?
Well, I think that the person, if you think that they're 100% happy, it's probably more or less they are living in denial and trying to project an image that they want their life to follow, and they're ignoring all kinds of red flags. And existing that way and hiding their emotions, and there's a lot underneath the surface. I promise you they're not 100% happy. That's not real. It's not. So they've been living unhappy for all of this time.
And if they say they are, just let me know what pill they're taking.
I know. Imagine this, Ileana. Imagine you were married for 30 years. You've been married for how long?
I think it's gonna be 5, but we've been together for 17, I think.
Oh, I think you got
16 or 17.
married around the same time I did. I think I got married in 2018. I think I got married in 2018.
I did 2019.
Oh, so around the same time. Yeah. Imagine you wake up 30 years from now and just say, you know what, F this. I'm out. I'm not happy. Haven't been happy for a long time, and I'm quitting on this person. I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd imagine, and you're in your 50s now. I mean, that would put you in your 60s. I think. Well, 25 years from now. I don't know how old you are. But yeah, imagine trying to start over in your 50s or 60s.
It's hard.
You would be planning to be alone. Like if I was a man and I just decided that after 30 years, I'm getting a divorce. If I made that call, it would not to be to start some other relationship. I'm just going to be a caveman. I'm going to go live up in the mountains. Nobody will ever find me ever again.
But what I see a lot in divorces is that men around the 55, 65-year mark, they go through the process where they want to be young again, and they start with the sports car, younger women, and go through that process. I've seen it often, but yeah, I mean, I see also a lot of women that just decide, you know what, like, it's just going to be too hard. I'm not going to deal
Has my
with.
tie been like this the whole time?
Oh, yes.
Jesus Christ. You could have told me. Somebody could have told me my tie was like this.
But it's okay because it's the podcast. You don't have to have it. You just came out of court. It's part of the reality.
Well, here's what it is.
I thought you knew.
You know, I forgot it. Never mind.
But yeah, some people decide to go that route with a caveman or I'm done.
Oh yeah, but it's just like this whole.
It's hard. I mean,
could you imagine going out like trying to date now after you've been married for 5 years, and like, oh, I'm gonna get to know this brand new person, and like you're gonna pretend like you're happy to talk about small talk, and you're gonna pretend to be engaged with what they have to say.
you have to relearn how to flirt.
Oh Jesus! I remember when I was dating my wife, and I remember prior to her dating women, I was just so bored with it all. I was like, I'm so not interested in what you're saying. I am so bored right now. I'm trying to be polite. I was getting harder and harder for it to be polite, where I could, hide my level of disinterest.
Yes.
I couldn't even imagine doing that in my 40s, going into my 50s or 60s or whatever. No, I just get tired of it all. But yeah, to invest 30 years and just declare, I've been unhappy for 15 years. I feel like my wife said that when I talk about marriage, it seems like I'm in an unhappy marriage. It's like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean that there's inevitably going to be unhappy moments. You're going to be struggling together. You're going through this universe and you're fighting it together. And the universe is a really formidable opponent. And it's going to create these pockets of unhappiness, and it's going to create these magical memories of happiness. And the goal is helping each other get over the hurdles and ducking under the bridges and the peaks and the valleys to find that you have a person that you've invested all this time in. And, when all of it is said and done and your looks have faded and the kids are grown and you're going to look back, and what do you have to show for it? An entire lifetime of struggle and success and a story and a legacy built on perseverance and getting over all of these things and not succumbing to the very base desires of, oh, I'm just not happy. You don't make time for romance anymore. You don't make me feel special. Anybody can make you feel special. Look, any knucklehead off the street can make you feel special at any time. If that's what you're looking for, your husband or wife is never going to compete with people that you don't know, because intrigue is the origin of curiosity, and curiosity is the origin of what killed the cat. So they say. You can find entertainment anywhere is my point.
Oh, yes.
You can't build a legacy with just anybody. You got this 30-year thing. Look, and I'm not trying to talk her back into getting married, get a divorce then. Do your thing. Go start over at 53. 53 is the new 40, so they say. I don't know. But it's just a shame that you've invested 30 years of your life. And what's left? You got maybe a good 20 more years of solid good health if everything goes perfect. Because, man, I hear people talk in their 50s, in their 60s, and they like, man, I just look in the mirror. My body is failing. Everything sucks. My knee hurts. My back hurts. I'm tired all the time. I got bags under my eyes. Oh, and you want me to go where? At what time of night?
I know.
Get the F out of here.
Oh my God.
So to answer her legal question, you don't have to pay any of that. The car payment, the house payment, all that. Pay your alimony. I would make sure, I might. You're paying them $2,000 a month. I don't know if that's going to be guideline or not based on the disparity of incomes, but it's worth a discussion with your attorney to figure out what the numbers would be. He should be able to advise you what it would be like to go through an alimony trial and what you're likely to award him. You're going to be paying him for the rest of his life unless he remarries. So if that's what you have to look forward to, you might as well get all of the information. There's no reason to have to agree to all of these other things. What was the other question she was asking? I don't want to sue him. Sue him for what? What are you going to sue him for? I just know I don't know if I should just wait until the youngest one is out of the house.
No.
Well,
Why?
I mean, you're already here. What's the point of that? I guarantee you he doesn't care. I mean, if he cares, it's not, he's not losing sleep over this. He's resilient. He's going to find a way. If you got to leave, then leave. But yeah, you're overpaying in alimony. That's what we have to say to you with respect to that. Any parting words for this one, Eliana?
Just get it done.
Get it done. It's
you
funny,
waited
man.
15 years, just
Like
get it done.
our style is like so. Like I'm always like this colorful. Oh, I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to take you all the way around the mountain, and then bring you all the way back, and then I say, "What do you think about that, Eliana?" Get it done, okay?
That's how I am. I'm pretty straight to the point. I don't sugarcoat things. So.
That is the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Let us move on. This is an interesting one. It's a long one. This may be more up your alley. Let's see. So, 28-year-old female. I've been married to my husband, who's 32 years old, for almost 6 years. I love my husband.
You said 22?
She's 28. He's 32.
Oh, 28. Okay.
Yeah. They've been married for 6 years. I love my husband, but lately I have been contemplating telling him I would like a divorce. We welcomed our first child in September of 22. So this is an incredibly difficult decision for me. Oh, young lady. We've done couples counseling in the past, and I encouraged him to talk with a therapist after the baby arrived, and he started having the jealous feelings, but he never followed through. We have a big blowout fight at least once a week. And no matter how much I express, I feel like I am not being heard. It never results in an actual resolution. When our first son arrived, my husband dealt with some jealousy issues and having to share me with the baby. Jesus. I say that, but that's a real thing that I've heard men go through.
Yes.
I've never particularly given a shit. It's like, I don't understand where jealousy would originate from the mother of your child caring for the baby. That's like an attractive thing. Like it's one of the things
I've seen it also the other way, where women feel jealous that the men are now giving more attention to the child than to them as a couple. And I've met people say that they don't want to have children because they don't want to share the affection or the attention with somebody else.
Well, I mean, if they're honest with themselves enough to say that, then don't have kids, because that's ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
There's no room for that as a parent, All right, let me continue. We have never really been the same, and all this constant fighting really has me debating on if we should call it quits for the betterment of our son. But I truly do not know if having divorced parents is better than having parents that fight a lot. I just want to make the best decision. I can answer that one pretty quickly. It's way better for you to be separate co-parents than to be living in the same house if you're going to have blowout fights, whatever that means to you. When you tell me blowout fights, I'm imagining screaming at the top of your lungs and throwing things and minor threats of violence, even if none is expressed. That's what I'm picturing. Nobody is safe in that environment. And if that's the case, you're way better off to be divorced. If it's not that, or, you know, some much smaller degree, that's a different discussion. But let me continue. Today, we argued, and I told him why something he did was bothering me. Instead of trying to hear where I'm coming from and see my perspective, he gaslights me and deflects like his life depends on it. This is the outcome I expect, to the point where I just totally avoid talking about things that bother me. I know that is not healthy, but mentally, this is where I am. You can only be told your feelings are invalid and crazy so many times before you start to think that might be true. It's difficult for me to evaluate that paragraph because I have no idea what she's talking about. She's using very conclusory language. Yes. This is her interpretation of what it is. I don't know what they're actually talking about. And so that may or may not be true. She might just be misinterpreted, or she might be spot on.
It drives me crazy when I read declarations in court from improper parties that are like paragraphs and paragraphs of this style of writing, and I'm like, you just said nothing. Like,
Yes, exactly. But you know, here we are. Last week, we got into a fight because I told him I was going to stay at my mom's house with the baby for the night. However, it was a long day, and after work, I told him me and the baby would probably just stay home and go to my mom's in the morning. He told me how disappointed he was because he was really looking forward to having some me time. Man, that's deep. Keeping in mind in the 6 months we have had our son, he has went on weekend-long fishing trips. Yeah. Went and got wasted at a Super Bowl party and many other events where I just stayed home with the baby to make things easier. During the fight, he told me, "You act like you do not even want to be a mom." And honestly, it broke me. I have not been able to look at him the same twice. We tried for 3 years to be able to have our son, countless doctor's appointments and tears, so you can imagine how hurtful this really was. Every day I wake up and try to be the best version of myself for our son, and it has really messed with my confidence as a mother. My husband is the kind of man that prioritizes his own hobbies and interests above all else. He is very into video gaming and really anything on the computer because he's a coder for work. Before our son arrived, it did not really bother me because I'm a big reader and I would read while he did his thing, and it just worked out. Now that we have a child, though, I feel like I am doing 90% of parental duties while still picking up after him, hand and foot. When I express this for him or ask for help with a certain task, I am met with eye rolls and sighs like he is a teenage boy. I'm kind of a clean freak and I do not mind carrying most of the load, but doing all the parenting, all the housework, and getting attitude in return is about all I can take. To top it all off, my husband and I both work from home. Yikes. Because of this, I have to consistently ask or remind my husband to take a damn shower on a regular basis. Yeah, come on, man. I mean, you got to at least...
she doesn't have a husband. She just has an adult-like child.
A teenager.
Yeah, that's horrible.
I was really planning on trying to defend this guy, but he's making it difficult. No. And I'm assuming all these things are true. He just seems really immature. Seriously, he'll go 2 weeks without bathing and not my ill.
Go 2 weeks? Are you kidding me?
I mean, according to her. And then wonder why I don't want to have sex with him. Obviously, you stink.
Do they sleep in the same bed? Oh my God. That's bad.
I don't know, man. There's just some common decency you should have for your partner. One of them should be your personal hygiene. Wash yourself. I can't help but daydream that maybe there is someone out there for me much better suited, and I am just wasting my years away, hoping he becomes the man I know he can be, but probably never will. I dream maybe I could find someone that takes pride in her home and wants to be better their life. I dream of finding a man that does the dishes or helps without having me have to ask and be met with resentment. Maybe even someone I do not have to remind to shower to take care of themselves. all my family thinks I'm crazy for staying as long as I have. My mom constantly sends me motivational stuff, and it's pretty clear she's trying to show me I'm being manipulated. Just a side note, who gives a shit about those people?
Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty sure she can find many men out there that do take showers daily.
Oh, there's a bunch. There's I feel like, hey Dominic, how often do you shower?
Once a day.
My goodness.
The idea of starting my life over with my son on my own is truly terrifying after being with my husband for almost 8 years, and I worry I will end up alone forever if I leave. He has never cheated or done anything that would definitely make me leave the relationship. Any advice is much appreciated. All right. So 6 years, they married when she was 22, he was 26, so relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
She's like kind of in the second chance stage of life as a woman, where if she wanted to cut ties with this guy because he's gross and immature and inconsiderate and all of those things, then she can do that really without penalty, and she'll be a single mom to a young boy. Mm-hmm. And she'll have to navigate those grounds. And she's going to hear a lot that, oh, men are not going to want you because you have a kid. I mean, maybe, maybe not. You don't know what's out there. But if you're going to start dating, you're not out there dating for marriage right away, I'd imagine. And I'd imagine she's probably going to take some time to raise her child and work on herself. Maybe she starts up taking yoga. Maybe she does, something for herself health-wise. Maybe she takes up painting, something that she learns. Maybe she upgrades her shower because she knows it's being utilized appropriately. It's hard to defend a man if that's truly indeed how it is, with no redeeming qualities. If he's not making money, if he's not the breadwinner, I forget. Am I confusing this one with the other one? Does he make 15 an hour?
You're confusing it with the other one.
What is his contribution to the house?
He just said that he was a coder.
Oh, he's a coder.
So I guess he has a job.
He's probably making like 80 to 100 grand a year or something like that. And he's making something. Mm-hmm. But it's funny. My wife works with a bunch of coders. This description that she just gave just kind of fits.
Yes.
Gamers, showers unfrequently, and just kind of weird generally disposition. But I'm not trying to impugn all coders. My wife is one. Well, she's not a coder. She's a IT. I don't know what the hell my wife does. She fixes stuff.
In that realm, there's like very weird, I guess, titles that not everybody understands.
I just know I couldn't do it. I try to be an IT person. I lasted like a month. I was like, I am so bored down here in this basement. There's no effing way. And I don't know what you're trying to teach me right now. I don't want to learn this code. I don't want to do this. And I was an information analyst or something.
Oh,
couldn't do it. If he's basically a paycheck. He is giving her shit about doing basic functions related to raising their child. The jealousy, I was going to say, I wasn't realizing it was going to attach to the son.
Yes.
But if that's what it is, I mean, that's a red flag. That spell, I know we throw around the word narcissism a lot, but that is a red flag that I'm not sure is going to get any better with time. He's already 32. He is what he's going to be. Mm-hmm. Just imagine him 10 years from now, maybe showering every 2 weeks. That's 26 showers a year?
That's true.
Imagine how that's going to go and look in 10 years. I can't imagine that he takes particularly good care of himself. I don't imagine he's the type to go to the gym. And God forbid he does, because Jesus, without the showers?
Yeah, no.
Demanding sex while he's also, that's just inconsiderate. That's just inconsiderate, man. Look, yes, to answer your question, yes, there is better men out there for you, and nobody's going to judge you if you decide to cut ties with this child who is 32 years old. I normally try to find some redeeming quality of the relationships to try to say, oh, there's hope, you could just do this and that, but it's difficult to stay with a man that is that level of inconsiderate and narcissistic. And so if I were your brother, if you were my daughter, I would say, hell yeah, you're getting a divorce. I will
also be
pay for the
sending-
lawyer. I'll represent you myself. We'll get you some child support. You know, don't worry about anything. We'll work on the custody and visitation. That's really the most annoying thing about it's going to be. You're going to have to figure out what custody and visitation is going to look like. At 28 and 32, I can't imagine they have that many assets to divide. And so just know whatever the equity is in all the assets, you're going to cut it in half. Support is going to be governed by his income versus yours, but we'll deal with it. But you deserve to give yourself a chance at real happiness. He chose this guy at 22 when you're basically a baby. It was like 4 years prior, you were watching SpongeBob SquarePants and debating about what color notebook you should have. You had no business choosing a man for life at 22 years old, and yet you did, and you saw how it worked out. Now, you deserve to give yourself another chance and see what else you could find. I made that very decision. I divorced at 29, and I'm very happy with my move, and it's worked out swimmingly well, and I would not change a thing about it, and if I did change anything about it, I would never have gotten married the first time. I was her age when I got married, 22. Imbecilic. Should not have, had no business doing that, but I did. And am I the wiser for it? Maybe, but I certainly paid for it. I got some good things out of it. I got my 17-year-old daughter. I learned some life lessons, and it drove me to work in law. How? Because, another story for a different day. So that's really what I have to say to her. What do you think about that, Eliana? What would you tell your husband if you didn't shower for 2 weeks?
He wouldn't be my husband. That's like a no. I mean, not even a roommate. No, it's just.
So, hey, buddy, you can't just walk around stinking like that, man. You
No.
gotta have some common courtesy for the folks around you. And your child, your baby child can't even get away, and you're holding him. You're over here smelling up the house.
Yeah.
Come on, man. It's just not.
No.
It's not anybody that I would consider. Imagine that's supposed to be the man of the house. That's supposed to be the breadwinner. That's supposed to be the rock upon which your family foundation and legacy is built upon. This effing guy that can't even wash his ass.
It doesn't matter, breadwinner, legacy or not. This is the person you're sharing space with. No, like, hell no.
Yeah. Hell to the no. All right, let's move on from this one. That was a fun one. That went in a direction I didn't expect it to go.
Exactly.
All right. This is a more simple one. All right. So my wife and I have been unofficially separated for about a year. She's bought a house in the meantime, which I want absolutely nothing to do with. My problem is I proposed to her with a 2-carat diamond platinum band engagement ring and married her with the matching wedding ring, which came from my great-grandfather and has been passed down for a few generations. Oh, this will be a fun one. I have been given no choice, or I have been given no notice of divorce or even official separation. She says that we are officially divorced, and I had 30 days to contest it. Is this even possible? How could I contest a divorce that I was never notified about? Also, all I'm asking for is the wedding ring set. If it matters, I've already given her my wedding ring back. I guess my question is, could it be possible for me to be officially divorced and have no clue, signed papers? The answer to that is, the short answer is yes, it's possible. She could have gotten a judgment by default. If you want to contest it, you can. You would have to file something, the equivalent of a motion to vacate judgment. It would be based on jurisdictional grounds, failure to serve properly. But if she has a judgment, she probably filed a proof of service that claims to have given you the paperwork that you're saying you never got. I can't tell you how many times people come to me, they filed this thing in court, they had the hearing without me, but they say that I was served and I was never served. It's like, well, how do you have the papers?
Yes.
It's like, I just got it in the mail. It's like, well,
or they tell you, yes, somebody gave it to me, but I didn't sign anything.
Exactly.
And you didn't have to sign anything.
They could literally
That's
throw it
service.
at your feet. And that's good service. And so, look, you may get somewhere trying to re-enter the case with a motion to set aside a default judgment or the equivalent of that in your state. You're going to want to consult with an attorney on that. But most states, for constitutional purposes related to due process, have a mechanism by which to set aside a default judgment. And oftentimes, well, at bare minimum, you're going to have to prove, and the burden is on you, that you were not served appropriately with the paperwork. If you can invalidate the service, then the court has no jurisdiction to make orders, and it would 100% invalidate the judgment that was granted, and it would set you back to square one. And what's likely to happen is the court would start the proceedings back to her initial filing. They'd give you 30 days to answer whatever, and then we'd do it all over. That's how it'll work. So that's the short version of what you asked. As far as getting your wedding ring back, good luck with that.
Yeah.
It's not happening. If you didn't get married, you could get it back.
Exactly.
But in this point, it's presumed to be a gift. You may have an argument because it was a sensitive family heirloom, but I would bet money that you're going to lose handily in that request. I don't know. Do you think there's any hope for him with that?
No. If they didn't get married, yes, but since they got married, that's hers.
Yeah, unfortunate. You don't give wedding rings from your great-grandmother that's been passed down for generations to, I was going to say, he did marry her. But give that to like your daughter or somebody. I don't know, man. Your kids, somebody that, well, who am I to judge? He did what he did.
If she wants it, he can pay her for it.
Yeah,
she
that's
might
up to
want
her.
the money, and
Just buy
I'm
it off her.
assuming that it's probably just a diamond. Or
She
I
may
don't
have
know.
already sold it and not told him.
Go walking pawn shop by pawn shop and find it. I don't know.
I'm just not very enthusiastic about his prospects of getting that back.
It's sad, but it's the reality. He's probably not going to get it back.
Is what it is, buddy. But hey, go file yourself a default and see what you can do about getting yourself back in the case. Because it sounds like she filed a petition with a proof of service that you had 30 days to respond to. You failed to respond. They waited long enough. She filed for a default judgment that extricated you from the case, and then she proceeded by way of judgment, uncontested, due to your defaults. And that's how they were able to get you officially divorced. So yes, it's possible. Yes, there's things you could do about it, but it's going to be sketchy. You're going to want to consult with an attorney. It's probably not something you should be doing on your own. If it means that much to you, you're already officially divorced. If you want to get back in and relitigate things, then go get yourself, at the very bare minimum, a free consult somewhere and see what's possible. That's all I got to say to this guy. Lots of luck to you, buddy. All right. This one is... All right. It's already starting off in the first sentence declaring somebody as a narcissist. We always have one of these, right?
In my experience, the people that say the other person's a narcissist
Is a narcissist themselves.
is a narcissist themselves, and the other party is not really a narcissist. And the few ones that I think they really are, they don't label them like that. Like that guy that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Nowhere in that description she mentioned narcissist.
Exactly.
But I was like thinking, yes, that person is a narcissist, but
Yeah.
it happens. But yes, most consultations when they start, so my ex or my baby daddy or my ex-wife, it's a narcissist. I'm like, here we go again.
It's like, all right, tell me how he's a narcissist. What do you got to say, Fran? All right. So I'm certain my soon-to-be ex is a narcissist. We're married for 2 years, together for 8. The majority of the relationship I dealt with gaslighting, manipulation, guilt tripping. Okay, I have this major pet peeve
Gaslighting.
about people who use these like pop culture words.
Yes.
I was gaslighting and he was manipulating me and guilt tripping me and trauma dumping on me and narcissizing me. And Jesus Christ, could you please use your own words? Not something you heard off of a TikTok somewhere. And I just, I can't. I hate it so bad, the way that we condition our language. Let me stop being the old guy in the room. All right. I was taken advantage of. He essentially did whatever he wanted because he knew I'd take care of everything, house, kids, etc. Of course, she's obviously a saint. It was, I don't mean to come off negative towards this lady.
Yes.
It's just, I've had a long day. There was literally my client literally got headbutted outside of the courthouse after I won my trial today. It was the most bizarre thing. I was telling them, for the people at home, I've already told you guys this story. So I won my trial. After the hearing, I'm trying to shield my client from what was obviously a very upset other party. And as we pulled out of the in front of the courthouse, it was like out of a South Park episode. I swear to God. It's like, hey, you stole my daughter away from me. And then he like sort of headbutted the guy, but it was a really ineffective headbutt. Like he tried to think he was going to do it, but he didn't know how to do it. And then they threw like coffee on him, and then he skipped away, and then he said some choice words and then just bounced off. Imagine a South Park animation. That's what happened today. And then he turned and looked at me. He's like, hey, I'm about to wrestle in my suit.
Oh my God.
I don't even get a chance to change. I was like, I was ready. But then it was so bizarre. I'm not even sure how I processed it. The guy just skipped off and he was gone. And then the guy was like, should I call the cops? And it's like, the cops are right there.
Yes.
And they didn't do anything because it was just so bizarre what happened. I said, I guess, file a police report, do what you got to do, make sure it's documented, see what happens. But, all right, well, stay safe, everybody.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long day.
And it's what?
It's 2:30, man.
2:30 p.m.
I don't mean to come off too negative this late. I don't like the pop culture pseudo psychologist language. All right. So I told him in April of 2023 that I couldn't do this anymore. I wanted a divorce. We decided to try and make our living situation work until September of 24 so that we could get our finances in order to provide the best possible situation for our kids who are 3 and 1. That's reasonable. How old are these folks again? They didn't say yet. To say the last few months have been hell is an understatement. He's binge drinking. He's always had issues with alcohol, but hit it. It wasn't out of control like he is now. He's doing drugs again. I have proof of him getting angry and being abusive while intoxicated over the years, but not of the drug use. Of course not. We had an unofficial custody agreement that we didn't have to ask each other or explain ourselves if we wanted a night off or to go out with friends. He hasn't been following it. He takes off for the entire week. That's supposed to be his week off and comes and goes as he pleases. On my week off, shows up late, doesn't come home, etc. If I go stay at a friend's for a couple of days, I come back and the house is a complete mess, toys, dog hair, no laundry done, dishes everywhere, etc. He's been questioning me on a daily basis about me seeing someone, has angry outbursts where he yells, calls me names, blows up my phone, and storms out and will be completely unreachable. He begged me for both of us not to start seeing anyone until we got our own places, and I agreed, and that seemed fair. So last Thursday, I went back to pack a bag for the kids because they were having a sleepover at my dad's. It was my duffel bag. But he had been using it here and there when he would leave and was just left in our bedroom. It was full of Viagra, lube, sex toys. I confronted him, and he's not been seeing someone for months.
They're separated, aren't they?
That's what I thought. I'm lost with that as well. He has since taken off, refusing to see kids until he figures out a living situation. I asked for a timeline. He doesn't have one. With how inconsistent he's been, I feel like this is just an excuse to walk away completely. But of course, he never admit to that as he paints himself as a devoted, loving father when he was barely involved when we were together. Interesting, because she's kind of painting herself as the same. I wonder what his side of the story would be. I'm really curious. Like, if I were to sit down in his office, what would he say to me that would just flip this script on its head? I really don't know, but I'm genuinely curious. The house is in my name. I can afford it with the current mortgage, but can't afford to give him half of the value with housing prices being so high right now, but would really like to keep it. It's the only house my kids know, and I feel like it would be way too much change given everything else going on. I also work for his business at his office. I do all the paperwork. It's seasonal, so I'm laid off right now, but he's refusing to bring me back in the spring. So I also have to find a new job. What are my options? I think having sole custody, unless he goes to rehab therapy and proves he can be consistent with the best for the kids. All right. But I want to know if I have a strong enough case or what I would need to build.
For what?
I guess she wants to know whether or not she can get sole custody of the kids. And well, all right, look, I'm going to defend this guy a little bit because I don't believe half of the stuff this lady is saying. They might have a bad relationship. They might be literally separated right now. He may be having questions about her going out with other men. He may be, their relationship may be unpalatable. She doesn't have any proof of substance abuse. She's claiming he does. We get that a lot. I literally just did a hearing today where the judge did not give a shit about substance abuse that was presented as evidence because he refused to do a drug test because he found there was no safety concerns because despite what your opinions are of this person, I don't have any evidence that there is a legitimate safety concern, so I'm not going to do anything about it or I'm not going to factor it into my decision making. So people have to be realistic with what the evidence is that they have. You want to paint this guy as a substance abuser. The court is not going to do anything for you unless you are able to corroborate that somehow. And it's not enough. It's not enough to say, well, I've seen him do it. How did you see him do it? Well, because I was doing it with him. It's like, of course you were. And then it's like, if you weren't doing it with him, then why didn't you do something about it 5 years ago? You guys been sleeping in the same bed for 5 years, living in the same house for 5 years, and you have any safety concerns back then. What's changed? Oh, you guys are getting separated? I see.
Exactly.
Well, there is a presumption in family law that we're going to do what's best for the children. It's going to be assumed that what's best for the children is to have frequent and continuous visits with both parents. And unless you can corroborate a valid safety concern, I'm not giving you sole anything. You guys are going to have joint legal custody and joint physical custody. We're going to pick a primary parent. That's probably going to be the primary caregiver. That may or may not be you. And we're going to give visitation rights to dad. And we're going to try to get it as close to 50-50 as possible, as long as it is possible. His work schedule corroborates, the geography doesn't get in the way, there's no safety issues and what have you. The reason why people normally do these week on or these every other weekend scenarios is just because both parents usually work. And it's, look, you might want to do 50-50, but how's that going to work? And you're like working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday. At that point, what, you just want them to sleep at your house? Well, we're not going to do that to the kid just because you want it. It's, look, they got to have a home base, whatever. So for purposes of her getting sole custody, it's extremely unlikely unless she's able to prove some of the stuff. What's the worst of what I read that you heard that he did, assuming that it's true? Like what was the biggest red flag?
Well,
binge drinking maybe, but even that is like, he can do whatever. He can binge drink as long as he's not doing it in front of the kids.
Yeah, exactly. When he's with the kids. I mean,
he's always had issues with alcohol, but hit it, wasn't out of control like he is right. I don't know what her definition of out of control is.
that's another thing. Like, I think it was this last week that I had somebody telling me that the other person had issues with alcohol. And then when I asked, like, what do you define as issues with alcohol? Oh, it's drinking at least once a week.
Yeah.
That's like, that's not really an issue with alcohol. It might be to somebody that's more conservative and about like
a Mormon that like was a stout religious person.
Yes.
I didn't mean to single out Mormons.
It's
An
not.
extremely religious person that believes that alcohol is evil and you should not consume even a mere drop. Never mind. I was going to make a really distasteful joke.
Oh, no.
I shouldn't. My wife is telling me, wow, man, I listened to your show last week. You almost got canceled like 4 times. Like, what did I say? Like, that's why I need Ileana in here, because you keep me, like, grounded. I don't even know what I said, but my wife was concerned I was going to get canceled.
That's funny.
So, all right, this was the biggest red flag I saw. I have proof of him getting angry and being abusive. The fact that she's not describing it in detail bothers me, because if it's just him yelling at you.
That's the thing, that I get a lot of claims like this, and then when I ask them, like, what's the proof? Oh, a text message calling me a bitch or something like that.
Yeah. For the listening public, it's really instructive to hear how myself and Ileana are reacting to this, because we deal with this every day. And if we're reacting this way,
imagine the judge.
Imagine the judge. This is exactly how it's going to come off to him. He may just completely write you off because you're writing it in a way that doesn't sound believable. You're making a lot of conclusory statements that without showing any proof. And so whatever you have to say, all right, you don't like the guy, I get it. You're not getting sole custody. That's how it's going to go. 3 years old and a 1-year-old, finances. Yeah. Unofficial custody agreement. This is not enforceable. This would never be written in an official agreement where you don't have to explain yourself if you wanted a night off. You don't have to explain yourself, period, in any sanctioned by the courts custody order that comes out of the court. You have your parenting time and that's it. Whatever you do in your non-parenting time is your business. You'll have set days that you have them, set days that the child goes with the other parent, and that's it. But whatever this was is not enforceable. So you don't like the guy, you want to get a divorce, go for it. She found, last Thursday I went to pack a bag for the kids because they were having a sleepover at my dad's. It was my duffel bag. But he had been using it here and there. And when he would leave and it was just left in our bedroom, it was full of Viagra, lube, sex toys. I confronted him. He's been seeing someone for months. All right. Well, good for him. So that is what it is. And it's really none of your business at this point. You guys are both separated. You're inevitably going to get a divorce. Yeah, I would not recommend these people try to make it work for the kids. What do you have to say to this young lady?
I think they have made it very far considering what she's saying, like living together all these months. It's just time to separate and move on.
She has to get a new job. She says she's been working at his office. Yeah, get a new job. Look, to me, especially in a scenario like that, the most successful co-parenting arrangements are the ones where you see and talk to each other as little as possible. However, that's got to happen. But yeah, your characterizations of this man is not going to hold any weight whatsoever unless you could corroborate it with evidence. And just from the way that you're talking, it doesn't sound like you have a whole hell of a lot. You might have a video of him yelling, but judges know how yelling starts, and they know that you're not a saint. At best, it's going to be deemed a mutual yelling.
Yes.
Probably. It's going to be a neutral variable at best, meaning it will have no effect whatsoever on whatever orders the judge makes. So that's my advice.
I once had a domestic violence case where the other party was claiming, of course, being the victim, and she showed a video where who used to be my client was yelling at her, but you could also hear her yelling back, and the judge words, well, you were defending yourself pretty nicely. Like, I don't see, you were both yelling. Why is it domestic violence towards you and not towards him?
Because I was in fear for my life. It's like, you're in fear for your life, but you guys slept in the same bedroom for like 8 months after that incident.
Exactly the same scenario in that case.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, get out of here with that. Yeah. You don't think, you wouldn't believe it to look at us family law attorneys and the judges that sit on these family law cases, but we are pretty good at picking up on bullshit. So don't bring it to court, man. If you want to characterize your partner as being this evil person and you want to be characterized as a saint, that's your business. We don't care. Unless you have evidence that he's putting you or this child in physical danger or neglect or something like that, you're not going to get sole anything. You're going to have to learn how to co-parent with this man. Whatever your personal feelings are for him, you might want to learn how to put those aside. It's none of your business who he's seeing. It's none of his business who you're seeing. That's it. Learn to live with it. And I think that this is a good time to end the segment and conclude the show, because we've been going for just about almost exactly 2.5 hours. Do you have any parting thoughts, Ileana?
Just glad to be back.
Well, good to have you back. It's been a couple of weeks. We haven't had you in studio for, I feel like, almost a month.
Not just a week and a half.
Yeah. We're also welcoming Dominic back from his trip to from Japan, where he was dabbling in gender ambiguity over there at various establishments. He did bring me back a toy that we're going to have for the show. It is the samurai sword of truth.
Nice.
I got to find a way to use this on segments. This is it's not sharp, by the way. It's like a toy.
I was going to say, like, for cutting cheese.
I tried to cut paper with it. It did not pass the test, but it's pretty cool. It's like the sword of truth for the podcast. I got to find a way to break this into a segment somewhere. By the way, if you have any production needs, producer needs, then give producer Dominic a call at his email that he's flashing on the screen right now. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what topic we're going to hit next, but we will be back next week to cover something. I'm leaning towards diving into some of the evidence that's come out with the Karen Reed case, because that case continues to be wild. The Daybell trial is also going on, but I feel like there's not as much interest in that case. We're probably going to leave that alone until the verdict. But yeah, we're probably going to revisit Karen Reed just to get a taste of what's going on with trial. The judge in that case, I really don't like her, and I want to talk about it. I just don't have time to do it today. So maybe we'll do it next week. And if there's something else you guys want me to cover, then let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll throw up a poll. With that, that's all we really have for you guys. And we love you all. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.